Now today's Through the Decades retro spectacle. The 1950s were a decade of rigid social conformity. People were expected to look, talk, act, and think like everybody else. It was only a matter of time before that cracked up. In the 1960s, faced with an unpopular war that they were told not to criticize, a significant segment of the younger generation rebelled against their parents, their communities, and their government. Spurred on by rock and roll, they chose, as countercultural guru Timothy Leary put it, to turn on, tune in, and drop out. In other words, they became hippies. The long hair, the stoner speech patterns, the peace symbols, and the flower power, at the time they were viewed as a very real threat to the American way of life. In addition to opposing the war, hippies advocated communal living at a time when communism was the country's ideological enemy. They spurned the work ethic in an era when people defined themselves by their jobs. They embraced Eastern philosophies and religions that were alien to most Americans, and they took over whole neighborhoods, most famously San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, where 100,000 hippies settled in for 1967's Summer of Love. But most alarming of all to 60s America was the hippie embrace of marijuana.
Nearly everyone in the hippie community smokes marijuana, whether they call it pot, grass, hemp, gauge, joint, or Mary Jane. The marijuana is the basic background for the shared drug experience. The experience is shared to such an extent that roach pipes are always in demand. The new generation, whether they are runaways or rebels in residence, use marijuana as a symbol of discontent with the basic values of the establishment.
Hippie culture reached its peak of both visibility and influence at Woodstock in 1969. Billed as 3 days of peace and music, the festival was also a celebration of free love and chemically altered consciousness. The darker side of all these freedoms started to surface in the 70s, with acid casualties and rampant STDs. And as hippies aged and had children of their own, they inevitably became less radical. By the late 70s, they were all but extinct. Still, their legacy remains strong. They didn't stop the war, but they did give America more relaxed standards of dress, sexuality, and recreational drug use. And of course, every major music festival still strives to be the next Woodstock. Maybe no one says groovy or out of sight anymore, but where it counts, we're all still a little hippie.